Hello, Jane Douglas from Outside Xbox. How are you?
Hello, Johnny Chiodini from Eurogamer video team. I'm very well. I've played an awful lot of Mirror's Edge Catalyst just now.
Me too. I kind of feel like my vision is still a little bit blurry from all of the forward momentum we've experienced over the last few hours.
My left thumb is quite sore from just constantly pressing forord on the stick, which is how I maintain momentum.
But it's fun. It's a good video game, I think.
Yes, yeah. I found it quite intense. I think you noticed that we were all kind of leaning into the screen and kind of like wiggling our shoulders, like trying to stay limber with all the parkour we were not doing.
There's a definite flinch that comes with playing Mirror's Edge Catalyst, but not Mirror's Edge 2 pointedly, because it's not a sequel, it's a reboot, effectively.
Yeah, well, I thought they were steering clear of the word reboot, but the producer did introduce it this morning as a reboot, but then he also said, and it's the origin story of Faith, so it's all a bit of semantics, but it's definitely not set after Mirror's Edge, it's set well before Mirror's Edge.
Yes.
And it's about how very young Faith, or like teen Faith, becomes the Faith we know, and she starts off getting out of juvie, where she's been a couple of years in some sort of... I want to say prison.
I think
a corporate sort of prison, because everything's sort of corporate in the City of Glass.
Yes, it's a Kruger-Sec privatised prison, which looks like the bit in The Fifth Element where they make you put your hands on the wall and search you in the orange jumpsuits.
Very, very Fifth Element, yeah.
But you kind of, I think, definitely, Kruger-Sec, obviously, they're your main antagonist in the game, but you get a real sense that they're what have pissed her off most over the last 2 years, because she gets out and she's really disgusted with everyone. She doesn't have her arm tattoo yet, but she's got the one under her eyes. Yeah. And it gives you a real, sense that it's kind of the building blocks of her story, which is interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely establishing her as a kind of juvenile rebel. She's got the eye tattoo and everything. And I picked up a few audio recordings that I believe are from her parents, right, who seem to be part of maybe like a political resistance or protesters. We saw some flashbacks, I think. Yeah. So these are going to be spoilers, but we only played maybe like the first 2 or 3, 4 hours of the game. So they're all from very early in the game. This is not like late game stuff if you're trying to avoid Mirror's Edge Catalyst spoilers. But yeah, you get the impression her parents were activists of some kind. And she hasn't got her arm tattoo yet, but we see a flashback in which young Faith, very young Faith, like infant Faith, before her parents go missing or disappeared or are killed or whatever, in which her mother shows her this print on the wall, and it's her arm tattoo. It's the electronic pattern, the circuit sort of pattern that she has in Mirror's Edge 1, and says, that's your future. Yeah. I'm like, is her mum just showing her, like, daughter, that's the tattoo I want you to get? Or presumably it's something meaningful, like that the circuit means something, or it's some sort of code or something's encoded in that picture.
Yeah, I agree. My assumption was it's something kind of like a schematic, because so many of the missions you're on in this game are to do with stealing intel and smuggling chips out from smashed drones and stuff like that. You're a real hellion, but at the same time you're very interested in gaining intelligence on your enemies, which is interesting. We also got to see a bit more of the stuff we saw in the trailer, where that person's hacking in to a screen, they turn around, they've got Sam Fisher kind of third echelon goggles on.
Yes, that guy.
Which was very interesting, because you were saying this before, right? You assumed they were going to be a really important character.
Yeah, I feel like it was a bait and switch, like we've been had by DICE, because I think it was at E3 last year when they had the new trailer, of course. And this guy was revealed, and we're like, oh, that's probably an important character. Yeah. But what we didn't see is that mere moments later, and I suppose this is a spoiler, but but there you go. Mere moments later, after the content of that trailer, he turns around, gets floored by one of Kruger's lady henchmen, and then eats his cyanide capsule and dies. And you're like, oh, so you're not a major character. You're just some other runner, probably for some resistance faction.
Yeah.
I think they're called, Black November or
something like that. It's something sufficiently Metal Gear sounding, frankly.
Yeah.
But...
I think they're mentioned in the clip, so we can probably edit in a clip here.
Oh yeah, perfect.
That illustrates what I can't remember. But yeah, the guy is out, and you nick some intel that he had been there trying to get. So that was the purpose of him in the narrative, and not that he's not going to be the love interest. He's not going to turn out to be like a major character. But we did meet some major characters who we've never seen before.
Yes, there's Noah, who's kind of like the father of the little cabal of snotty, bratty runners
Yeah,
that are in the City of Glass.
They're sort of Morpheus, like an older father figure, probably a former runner. He's got the gear, you know,
I imagine.
black and red and tattoos, and
Yeah.
and sort of wants to keep them safe. And then there's Icarus, who's a massive jerk.
He's the guy. He's pretty much the guy out of Prototype crossed with the guy from Infamous, I think.
There was a nice bit. I think it's dynamic rather than scripted, but there's a day-night cycle. So you see the city by night, it's beautiful. You see the city in the day, and it's beautiful. But I went to meet Icarus, and it was nighttime, and he was wearing mirrored sunglasses. And I was like, that's so perfect. I sort of hope it is scripted, but I'm not sure whether it would have happened during the day.
Isn't that when he's like, "It's your lucky day" as well? When he pops up, I think I know the cutscene. And if ever you were in doubt that he's just a bit of a knob, like that's your confirmation.
Yeah. Also, who calls themselves Icarus when they're constantly at risk of like falling to their death? I mean, that is inviting disaster.
My name is Hubris. Nice to meet you. How are you?
Exactly.
Much more down to earth though is Birdman, who's kind of the friendly Morgan Freeman style quest giver.
Very Morgan Freeman, very wise, very kindly. He is definitely a former runner. I had a cutscene with him where he was a runner in the other city. So there's the City of Glass and Cascadia, I think it's called.
Right.
So there's another city. So there's at least two cities in this fictional world. And he's a former runner as well, but he's slowed down. So now he just keeps pigeons and uses pigeons to like courier information around. Because no one trusts the internet in this dystopian future.
No, indeed.
You've got to like put it in a little tube and give it to a runner, or give it to a pigeon.
Yeah.
So those are your options for secure communication.
Those and only those. Apart from those, though, I mean, you know, assumedly we'll meet more characters outside of the stuff we've seen today, which is the stuff that's going in the closed beta. But it feels like it's not as big an organisation as it felt in the first Mirror's Edge. Because you remember the tutorial in the first one was like you just had an injury and it was your first time back running.
That's true. There was like a network of runners.
Yeah.
That said, you do see the odd person standing around on rooftops.
True.
You know, you just encounter them.
Yeah.
And they look like runners. But maybe it's it's like the runners network in its infancy. It feels more like they've got a kind of swanky apartment with mannequins and like communal showers. I don't know what's going on there, but maybe it's like the early days for what eventually becomes a more organised kind of network of runners in the first game. But then the fiction was very slight. It was lightly done in the first game, so it's almost like Mirror's Edge Catalyst is going to have a lot more fiction, and it doesn't have an enormous lot to do in catching up with the events of the first game. Yeah. Because there's not a lot to explain about the first game.
No, right.
The fiction was so kind of light.
Which I think is maybe why they've had a hard time sorting out whether it's a sequel or a reboot, you know, because...
Because all this big stuff they throw in there, like, none of that was in Mirror's Edge, so... Yeah, so it's a retelling of the origin story that is going to lead into a sort of a richer Mirror's Edge than the first game, and then and see where it goes from there.
There's just one last bit that I came in here today wanting to answer, because I had a theory about this after E3 when in the presentation they said that there was a dark secret that Faith uncovers that turns her world upside down, and there was a picture in that presentation of somebody like hooked up to a load of wires in their brain, like on a hospital gurney. And I reckon the Kruger sect guards are all people who have been disappeared from the City of Glass, basically, and are being like mind controlled. And just before you meet the guy who munches down his cyanide pill and dies, you do see like a weird lab, and you get the sense that something is not okay, and that this is something that Faith didn't expect to be happening in this office building. But I still don't know if I'm sold on it. Like, I don't know.
There's definitely something sort of biopharma, you know, like pharmaceutical or like brain chips. Or there's something going on with Kruger that involves that kind of thing. Because when you go into that lab, like you say, Faith actually says something like, "This isn't right," or so she's noticed. It's not just you, the player, going, "Oh, that's a bit weird." It's not just set dressing. It's got a purpose. And I was looking at the X-rays or scans or some kind of medical imaging on the wall, and they were brains, you know, with labels and things. So it's not. It's not impossible that there's some sort of brain meddling going on, especially because, I mean, it starts with you get this contact lens. Yeah. And it's sort of an augmented reality thing. And you first of all, you see it the way Kruger employees, or no, corporation employees. The corporation, apparently everyone works for the corporation. It's not clear what they do, but everyone works for them. And they've all got these contact lenses with, kind of Google Glass augmented reality that's just full of like advertising and follow the rules and reminders to not be a policy breaker, that kind of thing. And then she gets hers like jailbroken or whatever. So the idea that they're already that this corporation is trying to keep everyone under thumb and control them through the contact lens, it's a short leap to like just sticking in a brain chip and having controlling them that way. So it's not out of the question. And you don't. The guards are very like deliberately faceless. I mean, they do talk, but they only say things like "get her," so it could happen. It could play out like that. And then, they did say dark secret, so there's got to be a dark secret, and that is a totally plausible one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, until we find that out, I guess I should say thanks very much for coming on the channel. But we also talked a bit about the gameplay aspects of Mirror's Edge. So if you want to check that out, I'd suggest you go over to Outside Xbox and watch it there.
We'll see you there. See you over on Outside Xbox. Thanks.
Bye.